What is a HOI4 mod mega campaign? Well, a Paradox mega campaign typically refers to playing through 4 different Paradox games, CK3, EU4, Vic2 and HOI4, maybe even Stellaris, and creating sort of your own timeline across 1000 years that you play through across the mods. A HOI4 mod mega campaign is basically that, but instead of Paradox games, it's HOI4 mods. Starting from the end of a new beginning, a mod that starts in 1857. Yes, I do know there's mods that start earlier than that, but for the sake of this playthrough, we'll start here. We'll play through different HOI4 mods depending on the ending of our playthrough, so we could end in Kaiserreich or Millennium Dawn, or maybe even Red World. Only thing though is that there are 2 rules to this campaign to ensure that I just don't win at every single mod. Number 1, this game must be on Iron Man mode, and number 2, the game must be on expert difficulty. Should be challenging enough, right? Wow, let's get started. So here we go. That's how this begins. We're going to start with the end of a new beginning, which lasts from 1857 to the 1880s. And while in 1857, the empires are at their might, the powers of Europe spread their influence wide and far from the plains of Africa to the mountains of Asia. The end of a system written in centuries is nigh, an end that will bring a new beginning to the world as we know it. And today, we are going to play as the Russian Empire, and while Russia in 1857 is in quite an interesting position. Bitter defeat spreads across the nation as the Crimean War has come to the end with the Russians on the short end of the stick. However, all is not yet lost. Russia still has many roads to recover from the wars. Russia's history is only to start now. Alright, focus-wise, I think there's 5 branches to actually go down as a Russian Empire. As far as I'm concerned, there's no really huge old history paths. So yeah, I think I'll stick fairly historical for this playthrough. And decision-wise, alright, we've got unrest in the Caucasus here, firstly. Secondly, we also have the Great Game where we can expand for a little bit in Central Asia. Right, but enough talking, we have 23 years to play through, which is, well, it's going to take quite a while. So let's crack on with the focus tree and begin with the reign of Tsar Alexander II. A younger and more enlightened ruler, Alexander would seek to modernize Russia both economically and socially through a variety of bold reforms. Only time will tell if he will lead his great nation to the future, however, as the dark forces of the imperial court could turn him into nothing more than another regressive reactionary. Alright, and the next thing I actually want to do is to extend the liberal reforms and emancipation of the serfs, because that way we can complete radical economic reforms. And meanwhile here, we get the Caucasus War resumes. The time has now come to mend our mistakes and to end this costly war once and for all. And while that gave us a war goal against the Caucasian Imamate, so I guess that will begin our first war in this mega campaign. Let's begin. And yeah, clearly our war against the Caucasian Imamate isn't really doing that well. So I think we'll have to lure them out and maybe we'll be able to sneak through their lines. Hey, and here Mongolia requests our help again. And hey, there we go. Even if we can't defeat Caucasian Imamate, at least we annex a country. I didn't think that would take me that long, but I guess that's Caucasian Imamate gone, I guess. Now that our Imamate has been taken, we have finally firmly connected Azerbaijan with Russia, and this will most certainly help us secure our border against the Turkish or Persian incursions. Well, next up is Circassia. These Caucasus War are really taking away my sanity. Alright, I think that's done. The Caucasian War ends. The Circassians will now have to either accept our benevolent rule or flee to the Turks. No matter what, a new chapter opens in the Caucasus of peace and progress under Russian protection. Russia has triumphed. And now that the emancipation of serfs is also complete, we have completed a set of political reforms that is necessary to do this focus and enact radical economic reforms. We simply, because of a variety of reasons, cannot industrialize as fast as the Western countries, but by cutting expenses everywhere we can greatly speed up the modernization of our homeland. Alright, and after completing a round of these economic reform focuses, we have unlocked some decisions, and we can now also finish the Warsaw-Petersburg Railway, where we now also have 1,600 days to build infrastructure in Pskov, Vilno, and Blyashtok. Alright, and now that we're momentarily done with our economic tree, we can go back to doing our political reforms. And alright, after a year or so of focus taking, we have reached the end of our political reform, and we can finally end the censorship and, bring free press to Russia. And well, just as that happens, we now suddenly get revolts in Poland. We have reports coming from our soldiers that people which were supposed to be conscripted by us were missing. Some resisted the Branka and other killed or injured our soldiers and fled. Another uprising. Well, guess we'll have to crush them once more. The Polish people has risen up against the Russian oppressors. Their puny rebellion will be crushed. And well, after a year of resistance, it seems like Poland is lost yet again. And right after the war, we have received protest notes from France, Britain, and Austria. And while returning to the 1815 status, i.e. releasing Poland, I don't want to do that. And keeping the convention would really upset the Western powers, and I don't quite want war against Britain, France, and Austria. So I guess we'll break the Alphen-Sleeping Convention. Oh shit, and the Union actually surrendered to the Confederate States of America in here. I thought I turned on historical mode. But anyway, now that we've done with the Polish crisis, the next thing for us to deal with is, of course, the problem of Alaska. Historically in our timeline, the Russian Empire sold Alaska to the United States of America at a very cheap price. But as quite evidently, the USA isn't really doing that well right now, we might as well just set up a government of Alaska. And now, since it's 1864, it means that it is time for expansions again. In our great game against the British in Central Asia, we can now first propose a treaty on the Kazakh border, where we have become the controller of a few states in China. And we can also here take Taraz, which would start a border war between us and Kokand, which we easily won. Oh, and here we get the 1864 Geneva Convention. Anyway, another year has passed. It's now 1865, which means it's time to click another button and take another state. And there we go. Well, another year passed, which means we can do our second last round of expansion in Central Asia. And first, we'll start with beginning the invasion of Kokand. And there we go, that is Kokand knocked out. And next up is the invasion of Bukhara. And oh, there we go, that is Bukhara done as well. Are you bored of watching me squander other weak countries? Well, if you're not, I certainly am. So let's look at other countries' fight, shall we? War within the German Confederation there. Certainly interesting to see who win this war. Oh, and it definitely seems like Prussia's won that war. Anyways, now that that's over, it's back to doing focuses again. And alright, after another year of doing focuses, we can finally do the Trans-Siberian Railway, and that should be our economic branch complete. And well, let's start with the colonial focus tree now. Over the course of the past few centuries, the Russian Empire has greatly expanded its borders. To the north lies Finland, a Protestant country with a rising national identity. The Baltic Sea coastline there since the times of the Livonian Order. With such diverse population, we'll have to carefully plan ahead for Mother Russia. Alright, and the first country to deal with is the governor of Finland. And the difference between these two governors is that replacing it would lead to, I guess, giving more autonomy to Finland, while keeping the current one allows us to do this focus, which will integrate Finland. So you know what, screw reforms, we'll keep the current one. You know, Finland is an artificial concept. Alright, now that we're done with Finland, we can move on to Poland, where we once again have the chance to give them more autonomy, or you know which one I'm going to choose. Alright, now that we're done with Poland, next up is Malorussia. And you know what, actually, in Ukraine, both paths does not lead to any form of independence or increased autonomy, so I guess I'll just promote Drahonomov. And hey, look, the Franco-Prussian War is happening. Don't worry, Germany wins every single time. Alright, and there we go. That's our colonial branch of the focus tree done. And finally, for our last branch of focus tree, we can deal with our foreign affairs. We've got Weltpolitik, which is the historical branch and the branch that we are going to choose. Alright, and after all of that, we have finally finished the last focus of our focus tree. And meanwhile, while that's happening, we get the proposal of the 1873 agreement. Oh, it turns out there's another decades of decisions we have to take in the great game. Oh wow, another 5 hours of doing focuses and clicking buttons. Let's start with the invasion of Kiev now. 2 are fallen, 1 to go. Alright, there we go, Kiev defeated. Oh, alright, and here we actually get an event, which is, I assuming, about Ottoman declaring war on Serbia. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to let Serbia die here. And a short while after we decided to back Serbia, we get here an event which is an Ottoman weakness. And well, since this event doesn't really do that great of a job of providing the reason and background to this, I guess I'll fill you in with some historical information. So apparently what that Serbian event was is on 31st October, Russia issued an ultimatum requiring the Ottoman Empire to stop the hostilities and sign a new truce with Serbia, and the Sultan accepted the conditions of the ultimatum. To resolve the crisis, the Constantinople Conference was opened in Constantinople, but the Ottoman Empire announced its decision to disregard the results of the conference. And that leads us here to 3 decisions. We're going to just get a guarantee of neutrality from Austria-Hungary. And after Austria agrees to the offer, we can now begin the Russo-Turkish War. And well, finally, we get some action. The Russo-Turkish War. Russia declared war against Turkey in the name of the interest of humanity. F.F. Martins. The Balkans burn. Oh, and the Ottomans actually surrendered already here. Well, I guess taking Constantinople was a bit too much, eh? Alright, and now after the peace deal, we can see here that Serbia, Montenegro, and Bulgaria have actually gained independence. And right now, since the end of the Russo-Turkish War, we have reached 1880, and that is where we'll end today's playthrough. Over the past 23 years, we have witnessed Russia's expansion towards the Caucasus and Central Asia. Many changes have also occurred to the world. The CSA won the American Civil War, Italy ultimately got defeated and split in the Unification War, and most importantly, we saw the unification of a new great power, whose very existence threatens the balance of power in Europe. All of the pieces are set for general war in Europe, and all that's needed is one single event that will set things off. Boy, I wonder if that will ever happen.